Welcome to our live streamers. And the room's not quite full. We have some empty chairs. So if anybody's in the parking lot and wants to come in, there's room.
There's room.
And that, okay, communicated with Jarrell this week.
I know she's in Puerto Rico right now.
She is in Puerto Rico. It was a little questionable a week ago. She was a little ill, but she's doing better. And she wants to tell you that she's very glad she didn't ever have to cook for you.
I love home meals, just not when, there's 75 and you have to try everybody's.
All right, that was in the sermon last week. Okay, she really did text me that. No doubt.
I love Jarrell.
Yes, and that Ellen Menning is one of our online every week, probably the first person on there.
Wow.
And she, as soon as your name was mentioned, read everything she could learn on you. And pies are one of her favorites.
Oh, yes.
Hers are apple crunch, chess, and pecan, and she wants to know what your favorite pie is.
And it's Ella?
Ellen.
Ellen. Okay, so my favorite pie would be some sort of blackberry or blueberry or a bourbon pecan.
Oh, yes.
With or without the pecan?
Oh, okay, I was about to say with, yeah.
Okay, it's yours. If you need
Okay.
anything else, we'll figure it out.
Thank y'all for having me today and just letting me be with you. I'm going to try my best to keep turning this way so I can see and to do. Today has no real structure. I did, and that's on purpose. Now, some of you have already come to the Wednesday sessions that we had, and some have heard my story over and over, but I'm happy to answer questions if you have that. But today, my hope for is really to start us to get comfortable with sharing. Why do we come here? Why do you feel Wilshire is your home? But also, what don't you like about this place? I'm actually giving you permission to share that, right? Because in probably a year or two, I'm not going to do that. No, just but for each of us, we make a conscious decision to go to the church we go to, right? As they call it, we church shop. And for a long time, and sometimes we end up in the place that we've been in for 20, 30 years, and we've never seen anything different, but you talk to your friends, and your friends say, at my church we do this, this, and this, and you wonder, why aren't we doing that here, right? This is our opportunity to hear, to share, and to also be comfortable in saying, some things, it's okay to change. Some things may not look like it used to be, and that's okay. And so for this time, I want you to feel free to share that. Or if you don't want to share that because we're on live stream, you can write it down and slip it in my pocket. My grandma, every time I see her, almost every time, this is the good part of not living in Oklahoma, is that she will slip a $100 bill in my pocket and say, don't tell anybody. So we'll act like your comment is that $100. You just slip it in my hand and we won't tell anybody about it, right? Because here's the thing. I don't make the church. Heather, Darren, Julie, Joan, anybody on staff, Debbie, Jerry, none of us, we don't make the church. The church is how we work and do together. And so what you feel, what you believe, what you desire, what you feel God is leading you to is so important, because that too makes up Wilshire, of who we are. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah?
I always have to say something when it's you. You want to tell them about the chair thing, because really, I've heard lots of people talking about it.
Oh, yeah. So one, now hear me say, I am not getting rid of the chancel right now. Please do not hear me say this. I don't enjoy sitting in the chancel. That doesn't bring me joy, right? But there's things that doesn't bring all of us joy in our jobs, right? I before Wilshire, I at Emerywood would sit with a different family, different pew every week. And that was a time for me not only to get to just see and enjoy worship from a different standpoint, but get to know those people in the pew, right? Get to hear their voices, whether they're tone deaf or not. Get to see some of the things that they mark down. One part is that at Emerywood we had kind of a sitting area for parents who didn't want to necessarily have to take their children to the nursery, that they didn't feel comfortable, especially during COVID. And so I would go and sit back there, and on my lap I would have Burton just sitting there while I'm still getting ready to go up to preach in about 15 minutes. That gave me life, but also that became worship, not just as music or preaching or reading scripture, but being involved in the lives of people that are there. And so for me, if we're going to be on the chancel, I do not believe there is any type of hierarchy. The reason we are Baptists, the reason we are Protestants is because we believe that each of us are ministers in Christ. And so if that is the case, then where we sit does not matter. Where we are does not matter, because we are equal and we are one.
Those chairs need to get resized then, because some of them are little.
They are, and
some of them are big.
yes. So I find I will choose to sit in the most uncomfortable one. And so, as you'll see today, a youth or a child will be in the big chair, and that is how it will always be. And I will sit somewhere different every week, because that's not, we don't come to church for that, right? We don't come to say that, again, I don't make the church. We do this together, right? That's the word. Oh my goodness, I know your name and I'm forgetting it.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Say your name before you ask a question.
Yeah.
Anybody, even if you know he knows you.
All right.
Dwayne,
Dwayne, yes, thank you.
last Sunday, there was, on the inside front cover of the bulletin, Jeff had written this article about music. And it reminded me of how much I appreciate congregational singing.
Yes.
Yes.
So a lot of churches these days, it seems to me, are kind of getting away from that, going more toward performance and a different style of music. And I'm old fashioned, yes, I'll be the first to admit that. I like what we do in music.
Yeah.
I wish I could sing well enough to contribute something. I thoroughly enjoy it. I like it, appreciate it.
Yeah, I love, so I've only worked in churches like Wilshire, right? Traditional music, traditional worship. And I think that's beautiful in the places where we can all know the music we are singing and to be able to be part, or even to feel led to learn new songs that we can be able to. And I would say one of the things that I would, well, I can't say I'm tweaking, because I've said 60 days I'm just learning Wilshire. I'm not, but I think in the same way that we are worshiping, or others coming into our worship, we also have to be mindful of them bringing in their own experience too, right? We have a lot of people coming that are not Baptist, right? That are Methodist and Presbyterian. And sometimes, I will just say, when I first entered into the churches that I'm working in now, I didn't know "Come Thy Fount of Every Blessing." It was never a song that we ever sang. The way that we sung "God Me, O Thy Great Jehovah" is not the same that we sing. And I remember in undergrad, we went to chapel, and I didn't go to chapel often, but we went to chapel, and they had "God Me, O Thy Great Jehovah" on the list, and three of my friends, who we are all black, and we began to sing, "God me, O Thy Great Jehovah, lead me to Thy barren land, pilgrim land, God." And the whole college stopped because they didn't know what was going on. And then the organist began to play, "God me, O Thy Great Jehovah." We didn't know that, right? That's not, and so I think while we love our music and our music is beautiful, we have to also be mindful of those in the pews too, who may sing something different, and we have to be willing to learn that. And one of those pieces I would say too is with our youth. They come in last Sunday and they sang a piece that we would love. How many of y'all go down on Wednesdays with the youth and worship? I would love for you to take time, and I think the youth would love it. Because if there's things that I heard in my interviews, often from the youth, they felt siloed. They felt not part of Wilshire. And so one of the things that I would say is that even if we did it maybe once a month, we put in worship and we learned a song that they sing in worship. Because they sing it beautiful. But also recognizing that they too are Wilshire and not just in the basement. Right? So I think that that's a conscious effort in how we do that is so important. So thank you for saying that. I hope what I said was okay to say back, but I totally agree with you. The congregational, to sing together says something. I think it's, my favorite theologian is Heschel. And he talks about the beauty when we can raise our voice at once, whether it is in the midst of stuttering or whether it's in the midst of changing it maybe in a different dialect and but raising our voice together is the sound that pleases God.
As long as the screen doesn't come down.
As much, I know that is a huge worry for people at Wilshire. There's nowhere to even put a screen. Mechanically, there's no way you can put a screen in Wilshire Sanctuary, so you don't have to worry about that. Yes.
I'm Melanie Beller, and just tagging on a little bit to the worship music. One of the things that I appreciated when I started coming here, which is I became a member at the end of 20 or 21. I'm looking at other people.
They're supposed to remember that, right?
Yeah. Anyway, and it felt like home. But one of the things that was emphasized somewhere in when I was reading about the church was that singing is viewed as, you know, they want everyone to sing and every voice to be heard and that kind of thing. And I just love that because I too love music as worship, even though I may not have the best voice, but you know, whatever. But along with that, I'm with you about, I mean, I think there's a lot of, can I say crappy, contemporary Christian music. I could be a songwriter, you know. But there's some great music out there that comes from other traditions, ethnicities, that kind of thing. And I think I'm asking you to give us permission to sing gospel and sing and not feel like we're appropriating.
Yeah.
Because the last time I saw in the choir saying gospel, and they had a paragraph about that long about we're not appropriate, you know, and I think that's a lot of that is appropriate to explain the music, but it's okay to share each other's.
Exactly.
I think.
Yeah. You may, I'm sorry, I don't mean,
No,
didn't want,
that's-
you may have heard Doug say this. I'm pointing to you as if you're not Doug. I know, I'm sorry, Lord. I'm sorry. You may have heard Doug say this before, and much at the Polyphony Conference too. You give the same respect and reverence to Kane Felder or why am I blanking on every Mahalia Jackson and Andre Crouch song that you would do with Bach, right? It's not appropriation if you're respecting those who have still sang it and that. And here's the honest truth: we're a very white church, right? Most of us aren't going down the street to Friendship West to go have worship service, right? So the way that we're going to be introduced to music like that or introduced to these concepts have to be in this space and feel okay that it's not appropriation, but it is learning, but also respect at the same time.
Yes, thank you.
Because there's no other, and I don't mean to say there's no other way,
Yeah.
but very few of us are going to find that same understanding or the music or the writings elsewhere.
Because
That's,
I love that.
yeah.
You know, I love all sorts of music, but I'm afraid we get too liberally white, you know, and like, you know.
What can we do? What can't we do? What can we write? Yes.
We've done spirituals before.
Yeah.
In fact, I laugh when our choir does it because we really don't have a lot of rhythm.
But you're trying, right?
Their heads aren't bouncing. Come on, let's go. They just don't have it. But we do a lot.
Yes, and you do it well.
Through the years, yeah.
Yes.
It's not ready to do that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And so we just have to be able to say, it is okay. It is nothing wrong with us. Growing up, my uncle was my pastor.
That's funny.
And someone got up to do a solo, and it was really bad. And so my uncle got up and said, well, the Bible just doesn't say it has to be good noise. God just said make it a joyful noise. So, you know, we're trying in whatever we do and choosing to do that, but as much respect and love as we can, in the same ways we would do any other piece of music that may be written by a white person. And
Yes, I was wondering if you could tell us, when you came as resident, did you approach us or did a committee reach out to you, and how did you hear about it?
And you may need to repeat that
Yeah.
question.
yeah, you when I came, how did I come as a resident? Did Wilshire approach me or did? Yes. All right. You want the honest answer or you want the the nice Wilshire way answer? Okay. So I did not, again, if you heard me on Wednesday, my plans in life was not to be anything of what it is today. Right now, if it was my plans in life, I would have a house in Nantucket and then flying back on tomorrow to do a surgery, brain surgery. That was my plan in life, right? This is not to be a pastor. So, all I'd say. So my mentors are Jason Coker and Steve Wells. You know, Jason Coker was the first church I ever worked with and introduced me to the CBF. And then I worked 5 summers with South Main Baptist Church. If you know Jason and Steve, you know there is very few things they agree on. And they will admit it, but they say the one thing they agree on is Timothy Peoples. And so to get to be formed and learn so much by them and to still be able to say, become who I am, right? My own person. But both of them sat me down and said, you really need to look at the Wilshire residency. I said, I don't know that. I've never heard of this place before. I don't. That's fine. And then when I did Passport Kids one summer, Julie Gerards came up to me and said, hey, we have this residency thing. I think you should think about that. I said, okay, this is the second person that's heard. And so Steve went to George and said, hey, I have this guy and I really think you should look at him. And George said, I already have the people that I think I want, so we're not going to do that. And Steve, in Steve's way, did not like that answer. So Steve put something on George's calendar, but we'll call Debbie and put an appointment and make sure that it wasn't his name or something like that. Steve then flew me out from Connecticut at Yale to come sit to talk with George, and he flew from Houston and sat down and said, now you have to talk to him. And we had about an hour meeting. I flew back. And then there's this kind of other conference of churches called Metro that used to be where all these different pastors, and I had worked with most of them, and they had also talked to George. And so I put in to apply, and it worked. You know, and that was the time where you had to do the interviews in George's house in front of the entire committee, but also the people who weren't going to get it is also in front of you. Like, so you get one question, and the 4 of you are kind of in a circle while the committee's there. And if someone else takes your answer, you have to think of something else on the fly. I'll just say it. I know we're Facebook. It is the worst way to interview anybody. It was not fun at all.
Timothy, wait, I'm sorry to interrupt. Who was the other resident with you? I never can remember.
My person ended up leaving early, so I was by myself during my time of the residency. So I was here.
Now I remember.
So I was
The other two were.
above were Matthew Burrows and Erica Whitaker, and then coming after was Jacob Topper and Kevin Sinclair.
Oh, yeah.
And I had already worked with Kevin at South Main through all those times, so I've known Kevin over a decade. And so, got to the airport, got a call, and ended up coming. Yeah, so, and you know, my time was 15 through 17, so I was here during lots of the meetings and book studies and the vote, and getting to watch a church go through that and the ins and outs, sitting with people, discuss all of those things. And then to help lead as I went to Emerywood, and we did a lot of the similar and different things in our way of being open and affirming in to that. Yes. No, I was about to say it, but you're supposed to say it for me. It's Maryland, though, isn't it?
Maryland.
Okay.
Both Maryland.
Yeah.
Maryland and Maryland. Two questions I have.
Yes.
Okay, as the new pastor, what do you want us to call you? Pastor Timothy or
Great.
Timothy?
Yep.
And then from my standpoint is, you and I've been friends with you on Facebook for a long time.
Yeah.
And now, did you just drop me?
Oh. That's a good question to ask on Facebook. No, I deleted my Facebook.
Okay.
I felt for a time, I still have the Instagram. You're more than it wasn't bringing joy. As Marie Kondo, you know, the I can't think of the cleaning up. Yeah, if it doesn't bring you joy, let it go. And Facebook was just more of just a lot, and it didn't. And so. With Instagram, I can get on if I want and see pictures of friends, and then I can just get off of it and not have to have arguments with people that want to argue for the sake of arguing. And so, yeah, which is kind of crazy because, you know, been on Facebook since 2007, 6, right? And then you just kind of delete all of your kind of memories and pictures. But it felt really cathartic once I did it. So no, I have not erased anybody. I erased myself off of Facebook. Yep, and then I come right back. Yep.
I'm Frances Jones.
Yes.
And I would like for you to bring that up today now. Okay, you came as a resident.
Yep.
So tell us your story about coming as our minister then and how that.
Yeah, so some of y'all have already heard this, but George announced. I had many people reach out and say, would you be interested? And I said, no, thank you. And that had nothing really to do with just Wilshire. I was happy. I was just fine, right? We had done a lot of work at Emory Wood, from moving a staff from 2 to 6 or 7, growing in different ways. So it was fine. And it didn't need to. In some ways, I think the idea of starting that all over again, right? That whole process, the things you do, right? When you already kind of have your boundaries set, the ways you're going, right? It's, you know, comfortable. I talked with one of those mentors because they had asked if I was interested in doing it, and I just said, no, I'm fine. And he said, so I have a question for you. If someone else goes to the church, and they treat the people differently than you would, if they love them differently than you would you be hurt? And I said, yeah. I would be peed off because I love those people. And I love that church. And he said, I think you have your answer then. And so I applied, not expecting to be in this seat today because there was a national search, and I'm sure many people, right? You know, and the hard part too is that in the CBF we all know each other. It's not like it's a secret thing. We're a small denominational network where we're all in the same boat, and lots of us have all been, you know, in searches together. And I think the other part is that it was the first church that I had interviewed with since I've been at Emerywood. I just didn't plan to. You know, we were okay. And so as it kept getting, in my mind, it felt forever because, you know, you're in this and you're submitting stuff and then you're writing stuff and then you're interviewing and then you don't hear anything and then you have another interview and then you don't hear anything. And I'm just like, my Imodium was my best friend. Let's just be honest. Anytime I got a phone call or an email from I'm just like getting nervous. But there was a point where I wanted to be fully honest with my own staff at Emerywood, whether I got it or not. I just wanted them to know this was not a reflection that I am unhappy with you all. This is not a reflection of things that are happening in the church. This is just where I feel God is moving in my life right now. And I don't know the answer, yes or no, what that would look like. But for me, as you've heard me say over and over, transparency and honesty is very crucial to me. And so with that, that's the staff. Man, I love. And so they prayed with me. They loved with me. They didn't bombard me with questions if anything happened. And then as soon as I found out, it was weird because I found out while we were on staff retreat. I got a call, and so I let Valerie know, and we were on the call, and just made sure she was okay with it. And then I let the staff know, and they were the first people other than my wife to know, because they have been the ones that have journeyed with me through this time and together. And there's a piece of, there's only one other person in this world that knows what it's like to be, that's living, the pastor at Wilshire Baptist Church, right, at George. And so, as I imagine for George, too, the many people on this staff walking with him and journeying with him in the same way as that with Emory would, because of what it's like. And I thought it was quite funny. The associate pastor at Emory Wood, after my first week gone, he called me or texted me and said, "This has happened, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened." And it's just Wednesday. Is this a normal week, or is this what you did often and you just made it look good? And I said, or is this a crazy week, or is this what happened often and you just? And I said, that's about a normal week, right? We don't really usually realize what takes in that. So that was more to what you asked, but how that journey came. But lots of prayer, lots of support, and and I'll just say, for me, in the midst of these things, you don't really get to tell people that you're in it. You keep it, and you know, the stress that's on you and your spouse as you're walking with this and not knowing. And for Valerie, as it got closer, was it happening? Do I need to turn down these jobs that I may get because I can't start working there for just a few weeks and then up and leave because that looks bad on my resume? It takes a toll, right? And it's different than any other interviewing of any other job, right? And so there is, again, I'm adding more than what you asked for, so I'm going on. I believe it was studies in 2016, 2018, so it may have changed. The third highest vocation within suicide rates were pastors.
Wow.
And one of that is the work and the toll that is part of that, but also is the oftentimes the neglect that pastors put up on their families. And so then you have another high rate of divorce, and then you have another. So it is the pieces that we work with, and so how we do things in ministry, how we do things in our, it's very intentional. For me, it's very clear. My family has to be important, that I don't neglect my mental health and my spiritual health. I see my therapist, which I'm getting a new one now that I moved here. That's my one thing that I'm so sad about. I would see my therapist twice a month and my spiritual director once a month, right? Those things to make sure that I am taken care of and healthy, so that I can be able to take care of and be a part of the work of ministry is so important. And so, yeah. Sorry, that was more than what you had, right? Yeah.
At least you don't have to worry about getting a new barber.
Exactly, yeah. The pandemic took care of that. My hair was going back and back and back, and then I asked Valerie to cut it one day because my barber wasn't open, and I thought, what, this is the time for me to just go bald. And it's worked out great. It's cheap. Okay, please tip next to you. Right, you had your hand up. Ann, thank you, Ann. I love your glasses.
No, that's your thing.
Is that it? I have
No.
18 pair right now. I know. Yeah, I just bought a pair last week. I didn't need it. But, it's cheaper than going out buying cars, right?
When do you go back to your therapist?
Right. No. We have that conversation often. And you had your hand up. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna bounce back to music for a minute.
Okay.
Wilshire is so relaxed and so comfortable about so many things and with so many things. And it's not that we don't ever loosen up enough in the sanctuary to clap. But we have some knocked out performances sometimes.
Yeah.
And everybody just sits there on
Oh,
their.
yeah.
And if we could
Get a
just
little looser.
be a little more expressive, you know.
Yes.
I think that'd be great.
Well, it's not just Wilshire. Let's
Oh,
just,
no.
you know, if we go back to 1920s, 1930s, I think the Azusa revival was 1927. I could be wrong. There became an effort to make sure that we, as the type of church we are, were not the same as the Pentecostals, right? And so the Pentecostals who are clapping and dancing and moving, then for us to say that is not who we are. We're not speaking in tongues, we're not moving, we're not dancing, we are sitting, and we are part of worship. And also we go to a theological lens of liturgy and all that, taken from our Episcopalian friends, who I love. I mean, I love it. It is that as we are in worship, it is not for us and it's not performance, but it is what we are doing in a place with and to God, right? With God and to God. And so we've taken those things out, right? But we've, some traditions are not always the greatest traditions, right? Some things that we've learned and we've done and we've collected and held over time, it's just kind of been there and we don't really know why we do that at times. And sometimes we just have to realize it's okay to clap. It's okay to move. It's okay to laugh. It's okay to have joy. It's okay to make worship look different than what we've done before. But sometimes we need those permissions because of what's happened so long ago. Marilyn, yeah.
Okay. I was just noticing for the first time, I want to compliment you on your socks.
Oh!
What are they?
Yes, this is Mr. Rogers. Yes. So glasses and socks are my thing because often I would robe, and so I needed something that became me. So that it's yes. Oh,
We got
sorry.
a point down.
Okay. Oh, there you go.
Can you see them?
I don't think
Hopefully.
they can see him yet. There we go.
There we go.
All right. Yes, they are Mr. Rogers, and as we talk about neighbors and choices today in our sermon, I thought they were just the right socks to go with. Yes.
Well, I wanted to tell you that Ellen Minning agrees that a bourbon pecan pie sounds
Yeah.
really good. Commented on that.
Well, Ellen, I would love one day, wherever you are, we get to have a slice of pie together and talk about life, even if we do it on Zoom. All right.
Okay, and then also tell us how Valerie's settling in and the dogs.
Ah.
And are you looking for a house, or are you thinking you're gonna stay where you are, and go for it?
Yes. Again, any move is hard, right?
Yes.
And the ask, I don't know if it was the ask, but it was kind of there was a time that we needed to get here for how we were working out the logistics. So really we picked up in 2.5 weeks. 2.5, 3 weeks. We had 2 private showings of our house because people found out we're leaving and just said, can we see your house? We didn't have to list it, got 2 offers, and we were... but to pick up, and leave, it's been a whirlwind of emotions. It's the first house that I bought, and needed to be fixed up, and we had to renovate it twice because 2 trees fell in the middle of it and almost killed me. In any of our homes or past homes, they tell a story, right? And I think for us, we grieved a bit because we didn't get to sit and debrief those stories before we left. We just got everything picked up and just got in the car and had to go, right? So I think I think we're getting to a place where we can just say, you know what? There were beautiful moments, and it was good, and it was time, right? Some of you may know that Valerie had, during my call week, she had got a job that she really wanted and had to turn it down. Or she felt, because the first 3 or 4 months she would have to be in D.C. for 2 weeks a month, and she just felt that wasn't fair to just going into that. And so she's in the midst of searching right now. She's in transactional law, ESG contracts type law. So thankfully, she does not have to retake the bar, but still have to take time to get her license certified by Texas, which is hopefully will be soon, doing that, but she's still in the search into doing that. And so that's a hope as that comes, because she's a wonderful, wonderful lawyer. And she is not one who enjoys sitting at home. So as we are doing that, but the dogs are well. We have 2 Old English sheepdogs. An Old English sheepdog and a sheepadoodle, but it's just easy to say we have 2 Old English sheepdogs. One is Frankie, who we adopted at the age 4 or 5. We were her 3rd owner. Her 2nd owner rescued her from a puppy mill where they were just trying to get her to, having babies and selling them. And the 2nd owner, they were in the middle of adopting a daughter who had brittle bone disorder. And because Frankie's so big, the kid loved to ride Frankie, and they just said, we can't do that. And so we've had Frankie for 5.5 years, something like that. And she's just there, just getting old. She's the one that got sprayed by a skunk in the middle of coming here. The smell is still there, but they said almost 60 to 90 days. So we're just like, oh, we can make it. But it's getting better. Cardozo is the other one. He's 3. The sheepadoodle. I wanted to name him a theologian. But Valerie was in the middle of law school at home. And so, not a law school, but, Zoom often. And so he would just sit in her lap all the time. And Valerie is not an animal person. So it is nothing but God that this dog she loves. And so Cardozo is her favorite past Supreme Court justice. And so that's who she named him after. Yes.
I guess people have informed you of the dog park not too far from here.
Yes, we walked there Wednesday and saw the grouping of people that you get to, yes. And then the other part of your question was the house. Yes, so we are in the search for the house. The market's just not fun right now. We're fingers crossed everything's working out. We have a fixer-upper that we put in, but again, that will take more time because we have to gut it all and to redo it all. So it will we're hoping that, but we're not all the way sure. So we're just sitting in the wait, and it's a seller's market, and everything is just priced ridiculous. That is not, and so we don't want to get something that's not worth what it is, and then have to figure that all out. Yes, yeah, I'm gonna go to Susan because Susan has asked one yet, and then I'll come back. Yes.
You may not want to answer this yet.
Yes.
Okay? But
Yeah.
I really appreciate how you are getting to know the church, the people, that you knew before, and the people, as you say, we've changed since then, as you have, and the people you didn't know. I'm just wondering if you, before you even came, are aware of things that you want to perhaps be different here, or to add to what we're doing already, or maybe you just want to wait until you get oriented and get, people, until you start talking about those things.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
either way, I'm just curious if you have
Yeah.
anything that you would share with us.
So the quick answer is yes. The part of that is I won't say exactly yet.
Okay.
One is that I don't want to say something and it comes in your mind that this is set in, that Timothy's trying to, and that's not the truth. It is things that I also have written down and looked that I want to also be conscious of as I am understanding the way in life of Wilshire and what could be better and what could be knocked off, right? I think, and I think some of you, again, I cannot remember what I said during interviews or call week because it's just been a lot more lately, is that we as Christians, we will, there are ambulance chasers, as they call some lawyers, and I say that the church is a hearse chaser. We will, soon as something is ready to die and is about to be put in the ground, we as the church say we need to resurrect it. And that has never happened except for Jesus, right? I mean, it doesn't happen well. And so we don't let things die off as they need to in the church because it becomes emotionally tied to something. Our moms and dad did this in 1972, so we have to keep it, even if only one person is showing up and it's not very helpful and it's not breathing life in the church, right? There are things that we do have to be conscious about that the church today is different. And it's never, I shouldn't say never, it is not going to look like what it used to be. Because if we ask the Apostle Paul to look at church right now, Paul would be mad. Because everything that the institutional church, almost everything, Paul talks about not doing, not to do, right? So church has evolved. Church has changed. And so I say yes, but I think in parts we have to get comfortable that in order for church to continue, and I mean that as the building, not just church. In order for the way we do and live and act and breathe together, we have to be open to looking at how that is done differently. And so, yes, there are some things, and then there are some things that I've already changed my mind and said, oh, we don't need to do that. Cross that off my list, right? So I'm in that phase of, as I call it, asset-based collection that most missionaries do when they go somewhere. They sit, what are the assets that is in this place, and what are the things that aren't given life, right? And so that's kind of in that thing that I'm looking at, but also sitting with others to sit and say, later we'll say, do I have this wrong? Have I perceived this differently? Help me understand. So, yeah.
I know you're kind of tight.
No, you're good. Oh, okay. You're good, yeah.
33. Okay, so one thing is we will work off you as a congregation as to when we're clapping, when we do anything. We're working off of the choir and the worship team as to tell us what to do. If it's okay to weave or clap, whatever. Second of all is, Wilshire is so different from so many Baptist churches in town and in the country. What made you feel that you were comfortable or wanted to come to this church? What were the areas, because it's got a lot of different areas that are non-typical. So what are areas that you think drew you back to this church, or that you appreciate, without getting yourself into hot water by saying some things?
Right. A big part of that is I know that we have had questions about change and the hesitancy, or not hesitancy, but how that would look. Wilshire is pretty good. And I might be misremembering things. It's pretty good with seeing changes as long as it's done well. Right?
Yeah.
And that's not the case for most churches, right? Change, no one wants. That's just not how it is. But it needs to be introduced the correct way and how it's done. So I think one of those things, to be able to say that I can go to a church that I theologically align with a good amount of the time, right? Because the thing, when I say a good amount of time, none of us all agree on everything. That's a cult, and we're not trying to be a cult, right? That's not what we're making here. The beauty of the Christian body is that we get to disagree and look at and worship God differently. Part of that, and then the ways that we work in the world. I have problems with churches that are just so siloed in about, let's just work within this space. But the ways that we can go outside, right? That we just gave a donation to our Turkish and Kurdish and Syrian brothers and sisters who may not even be Christians, that are Muslims and other faiths, and we gave a donation, and we're finding ways how we can help and assist them, because it does not matter, because they are still our brothers and sisters, right? We can't say that at a lot of churches, right? The fact that yesterday we had a packed out house for racial mythologies and the White Church Conference led by Greg Garrett, and people were there to learn and not to sit and argue their ways of saying, no, you're wrong, even though facts and history has told us this all day long. We can have those conversations, right? So to be able to be at a place where we can still be learning and equipped by the Spirit of God and each other is huge. Because the landscape of church in 2023 that we saw in 2022 and 2021 is, if you don't believe, if you don't say the same things that I believe or agree with, then I don't want to be church with you. And so I love this about Wilshire. And if I'm on, I love y'all.
You could not be in this class if this weren't the most liberal,
Narc Wingfield, you got it.
Yeah.
No, yes, but yeah. but again, we get to be in this space together, right, and worship together. Lynette.
Lynette, I only have one thing to say, and it's this, and thank you for answering the call. And I gotta say that sometimes when God talks to me, I don't get it right. But I got it right this time.
This is just an idea, and again, it's because I've heard people say this so much, or ask about it. Have you considered, with babies, they have a sip and see, have y'all ever been to that? Maybe with your dogs sometime, as it starts getting warmer, you could bring them out and so we could all meet them. Because I hate to stop at your house and say, oh, can I play with your dog?
Yeah. Frankie probably wouldn't be. Frankie is. We could never do it together. Frankie has made Dozo as like her mama instinct. So if anybody she kind of gets sometimes aggressive with other dogs and anything like that. So we just have to. We just always want to be mindful of that and knowing as you have an adopted dog that has had trauma and different things, making sure of that. And so yeah, I'm sure one day we would be happy to once skunk smell is gone and once we have managed, that would be great, I think. Yeah.
I don't mean us bring our dogs.
Oh.
I just, to see them.
To see them, yes. And one of the things that we, the Episcopalians and what I've done at every other church is, the blessing of the pets, which is so dear and love that. And so I think that's an important thing to add back into worship because for many of us, those are our babies. They matter so much to us. And that's, even as Frankie's getting so old and I'm like, oh, my baby. Those are sweet. Yes.
I just want to say before you need to go.
Yes, I have to go test out a new mic. I do apologize.
On the live streaming would like for you to pray online before we close it off.
Let's pray. God of all things, thank you. Thank you for the ways that your Spirit moves through us and in us and even beyond us. Thank you, God, that we each continue to answer the call to be your children. And sometimes we don't get it right. Sometimes we hang up the phone. Sometimes we choose not to even answer it at all. But yet your grace is sufficient. And your grace continues to be over us. Lord, please instill in us strength and courage to go out into this world with feet of faith, hands of hope, and minds that are focused on you. So that whatever we do is not for the sake of self, but for you. In all our ways that we will acknowledge you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank y'all so much. I'm sorry that I have to run, but thank y'all for allowing me to be with y'all today. Thank you.